So I hope that this is a pretty judge-free crowd because I have something to admit that's a little bit embarrassing. So when I was a kid, I used to think that in order to go to different continents, you needed an actual rocket ship. I used to think that in order to go see the Eiffel Tower or Big Ben in London or the Sydney Opera House, I had to study for years and years and years for astronomy or physics or engineering, and then save up $1 trillion for a rocket ship. That's really embarrassing, but that's how distant travel was for me. I never saw anybody in my community going absolutely anywhere except the Jersey Shore. I'm from Philadelphia. So I just thought, we'll go to the Jersey Shore, go to Wildwood, and that's about it. And I thought this for a very long time. I'm so happy to say that in 2005, I used my passport for the first time. But it wasn't until I took my first trip with President and Mrs. Obama to Jakarta, Indonesia in 2010 that I really honestly fell in love with travel. Back it up just a little bit to how I got to the White House. So, 17, I graduated high school. Like everyone else, you're supposed to go to college, supposed to do really well, supposed to not get any debt. I did 0 of those things. So when I went to college, you needed 2 things. You needed finances and discipline. I had 0 of any of that. I had no interest in college. I had no interest in getting a higher education. I just wanted to make money. But basically, I was told you have to go to college. I went to college at 17, failed out at 18. So when I failed out of college, I said to myself, that's okay. I'll just go open every credit card that there is and just go bankrupt. I didn't really care because to me, it didn't really matter. So I went and I opened up every credit card that there was. And then I went and got a job at the mall. At the time, when I was 19, working at Audubon Payne for $5.50 was amazing. It was like I had my own money, my own everything. So I kept doing that for a number of years. And then eventually I realized I should go back to school. Maybe I should go back and get an education. So then I tried to go back to school, and 2 schools told me, I'm sorry, you're basically not smart enough to go to college. And I said, that's cool, that's all right, I'll just keep working. And so I did. So then once I was in Cincinnati, once I moved back home to my city of Philadelphia, I said I'm gonna try one more time to go to college. And so then I applied again to college. And once again, I got a rejection letter. But the letter said, you should try community college. And I was like, community college? Like, that's the 13th grade. Who goes to community college? No one goes to community college. So I said, no, thank you. I'm gonna keep it moving. Then, eventually, I said to myself, you should swallow your pride, and you should really go back to school. At this point, I'm 27 years old. So I went to apply to community college, and you know what they told me? They said, you're amazing in English, so great, but your math is really bad. And I was like, okay, but that's why I'm here, thank you. And they said, you have to go take a high school course. And I said, a high school course? I'm like, this is hell. I was like, I don't understand why this is all happening to me. But again, I swallowed my pride, and I went and I learned algebra for the 4th or 5th time. So eventually, I started community college in 2007. Then 2008 happened. It was a magical, magical year for me. Number 1, I already said that I'm from Philadelphia. Our sports teams win nothing. But this time, the Philadelphia Phillies won the World Series. It was amazing. It was like insane. But then this black man was running for president. And I said, that's lovely that this black man's running for president, but he is not really gonna win. Like, for real. Like, I really appreciate what he's trying to do, and I'm like with him, but I doubt he's ever gonna win. But what I did was I cut out a picture of Barack Obama, senator at the time, and I put it on my desk. And I said, one day I'm gonna work for this man. But that was like, you know, you say that, I said that about Oprah too, that hasn't happened yet. So, like, it's whatever. So I was thinking, there's no way this is gonna happen. So then 2008 happened, Barack Obama actually won the presidency, and then the following year I was like, that's amazing, but now I gotta figure out how I can work for him. Like, what can I do? At the time, I was mentoring a bunch of young girls, and I used to get applications all the time for the girls. I used to get everything from scholarships, internships, and something came across my desk. It said White House internship. And I said, well, this is my in, this is it. And I said, but I'm sure At this point, I had terrible debt. I had 6 credits of community college. I knew no one. I also publicly wrote about my abortion in the paper. And I was thinking, there's no way they're gonna choose me for a White House internship. But the application was super duper easy. And I was like, I can do this. I was a hip hop writer also. So I was like, I can write. This is pretty easy. So I did the application. I heard nothing for ever and ever and ever. Then July 2009 at 10:30 p.m., the White House called. And I said, I'm sorry, who? And they said, this is the White House. And I said, can I help you? And they said, we want to interview for an internship. And I said, okay. I did the interview. I thought I did amazing. Apparently they did too. But I thought I did amazing. And then I didn't hear anything for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I said, oh, well, that was great. So then I got an email. And you know how Gmail has a preview? It said on it, we want to inform you. And I was like, that I obviously wasn't selected, delete. And I was like, I don't need any drama or any negative feelings about myself. I don't even need to see a rejection email. So I deleted it. Oops. So about a week later, it says, reminder, your paperwork is due. And I was like, for what? And I opened it up and it was like, your SF-86, which is the longest form in history of the world to fill out for a clearance. And I was like, oh shit. And I hurry up, I filled it out, turned it in, it was not too late. And then I thought, once I do this background check, I'm definitely not gonna get this. And so, obviously I did. And then in September of 2009, I started my White House internship. I was 31 years old. Those glasses are just for show. I just want to look smart. I could totally see. My blazer was from some discount store. It was way too big. I had kept my nose ring in. I had these dookie braids. I was like, I'm going to be this black girl going in there with these braids. Nobody's going to understand. But I want to go for it. And so I started my internship in what is called the Scheduling and Advanced Department. And I was a regular intern. I just did paperwork and slides and a bunch of other things. And then November 2009 happened. And that was the shooting at Fort Hood. And when the shooting at Fort Hood happened, all of the staff members were over in Asia getting ready for the president to go to his yearly Asia trip. And some staff member came to me and said, pack your bags, we need you to go somewhere. And I'm like, I'm from Philly, I'm not going nowhere unless you tell me where we're going. And she's like, the White House wants you to go. I'm like, yes, ma'am. And so I packed my bags. And I got to Andrews Air Force Base, and I was like, oh my God, am I getting on Air Force One? They're like, no. You're getting on a cargo plane. I'm like, hold up, hold up, a cargo plane. So we get on a cargo plane, which is a C-17. It's a military plane. And I said, where are we going? And they said, Fort Hood, Texas. And I said, well, why am I going? I'm an intern. They said, we need you to go. We need you to go ahead and do press logistics and assist the team before the president and first lady come down. And I was like, excuse me, what? And I said, again, I'm an intern. And they were like, there is no time to say you were an intern. They're like, you gotta step up. We landed in Fort Hood, Texas. We had 36 hours to plan a 20,000 person rally before the president and first lady came. It was the most somber experience that I ever in my life ever had. But I think that's basically then what got me further with the White House. So then the internship was over. I left, I went back home. I said, that was lovely. I probably won't be lucky twice for something else like that to happen ever to me. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I did get to fly home on Air Force One from Fort Hood, which was amazing. And I remember the president coming down the aisle and being like, who's that? And somebody's like, that's our intern. I'm like, shh. I'm like, I don't know if this is legal. So anyway, so then after Fort Hood happened, I went home. And I said, you know what? That was great. I love that experience. Like, I'm gonna go home and be this big activist like I was. And I went back to my job and it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel the same anymore because I knew I was capable of doing more. And so I went to quit my job. I don't know what made me think that was a smart idea. But a week later, the White House emailed me. And they said, we need to talk to you. And I was like, what did I mess up? I'm so sorry. And they said, there's a job for you here. And I said, for me? And they said, for you. And I said, well, just to be very clear, I don't have a college degree. And I want to be very honest about that because I don't want it coming back that this Obama aide doesn't have a college degree. And they said, if you promise you'll finish while you're here, you can have the job. So I moved down to DC in June of 2010 and started a 7.5 career that ended January 20th, 2017. I was the last employee to leave the building on the Obama administration. So here's just a few of my experiences. Going with the president to Mexico, meeting the Pope, that was amazing. I slept on my floor that night, first of all, because I was like, I don't know if I can get into the next day. And I'm tired, and the president's like, Deesha, come over here. And I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, I want you to meet the Pope. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And I didn't even know this picture existed. So these are some of my highlights. And then dancing with them. So there's this tradition, right, that at the end of every holiday season, which I coordinated, the social secretary, which was my final job that I had, danced with the president, right? So he's like, you're gonna just, before it was like nobody had music or anything. I'm like, oh no, I'm having music and speakers and everything. So I put on a Beyonce song, and this was us dancing to Beyonce. So, from my first trip with them in 2010 to Indonesia to my last trip with them to Morocco in 2016, there was something I noticed all of the time when I went to different embassies and worked with the diplomats. There were 0.0% Black people. And I didn't understand it. Why are there no Black people working in US embassies? I'm not understanding this at all. It was basically all white people. And I'm like, but this is not our country. Our country's multiracial. So why at the embassies are there no Black people? I didn't understand this. So then what I decided to do is go ahead and do a little bit of research and research study abroad students. And I realized this, out of 300,000 study abroad students, 5% were Black. That is a huge problem. So then I went back a little bit further and I asked high school girls, do you want to study abroad? Like Black girls, is it something that you want to do or international? And they literally laughed at me. And they were like to where? And I'm like, I don't know, Spain or whatever. They were like, Niagara Falls. I'm like, that's fine. And I was like, no shade, whatever. And I said, but what about like going overseas? And they were like, nobody has money for that and no one does that. White people do that. And I said, really? And I said, you know what? I can understand how you think that because when I was little, I thought a rocket ship had to take me to see the Eiffel Tower. So then that all made sense. And I was like, I get it. You don't have any money. I get it. 1 in 5 girls lives in poverty. 60% of those are African American. That brings us back to, well, what can we do about it, right? What can we actually do? We can't let this continue. It's not fair and it's not right. These girls think they have no money, so they don't even try, right? If they don't study abroad, or if they don't even think they can go international, what makes them think they want to be US diplomats? They don't even know what foreign service is. What I did is say, how can I actually create something that's going to make girls citizens of the world and not just citizens in the world? So what I did in 2004, along with some friends, is create an organization called Be Girl World. We had no idea what we were doing. We just were like, we want to get these girls passports and travel. So Be Girl World started in Philadelphia. We started with 12 girls. What we did with them is a 2-year global education and travel program. We got them all passports. We taught them how to make things like sushi. And if you know Black girls, they don't like sushi. They taught them all to have sushi. They were like, what is sushi? I don't want raw fish. I'm like, have avocado. We taught them how to dance, to do different international dances. We taught them that they belong here. They belong everywhere. Because at that point, they had not even thought or imagined or dreamed that they could actually travel somewhere abroad. We actually also took them to Europe. We took them to London and we took them to Paris. And it was interesting because when we got to Paris, the first thing they said was, I said, look at the Eiffel Tower. They were like, but is that the real one? And I was like, we have more work to do here. I was like, yes, that's the real one. And they said, well, I thought the real one was in Las Vegas. And I'm like, no, and we're not going to Vegas, by the way. So they didn't even realize that was actually the Eiffel Tower. And so then after that exercise, we said to them, okay, now that you've had this trip, what did you feel? Like, what are the things that you experienced going to another country? And this is what they came up with. They have so much self-confidence, more than what they had before. They have a worldly view. The bias of anything that they ever thought of the world is gone. So then I thought to myself, well, what were you going to do with this? And they said, you know what, Miss Deesha, we want to study abroad. We want to learn more about foreign service, and we want to do Peace Corps. And I was like, Peace Corps? I was like, that's 2 years. And they were like, we want to do Peace Corps. And right now we have a girl that's applying to Peace Corps from our program, right? So we know that it works, right? So when we went to Europe, these were the girls on the plane. They were scared, shitless, right? And I was very lucky because President Obama's birthday party was the same night that we were leaving, so I didn't get to fly with them there, but they sent me this photo, and I'm like, are you guys okay? They're like, we don't know. But this was on our way to Europe, and you could just look at their faces, and look how excited they are to be there. Look at them at the Notre Dame. They were just so excited. They didn't even realize that they could be there. People were staring at them, and instead of them getting defensive like us Philly girls always do, right? Always. They just answered questions about their hair, about the way they talked, about their clothing, about their lipstick, about their skin. And I told them, don't be angry when people want to talk to you about being Black, because some of these people have never seen Black people. They've seen athletes on TV, but that's about it. And so now we're in our year 2. And now our year 2, we have a new class. Our new class just started. And our new class is fresh faces of freshmen and high school girls, all Black, who say, I'm not getting on a plane. And I'm like, but you will. They're like, we're not going on a plane, we don't want to leave home. And I said, these are the benefits of going, if you decide to go. So now we're at a point of, what do we do with this, right? We have 3 choices. We can challenge the system, which, let's be honest, the system needs to be challenged. There is no reason why, at a university or academic level, that there are not more Black students recruited to study abroad. Let's just call it what it is, right? At the Foreign Service level with State Department, that's another issue. Why are there not more Black Foreign Service officers? What is the issue here, right? So we need to do a few things ourselves. Number 1, we need to look around sometimes. Look at your spaces, because the space which we are in, everything represents something that's wrong with the world. If you see that you're in a space that's all white, maybe you need to figure out how to bring some brown people into the equation here, right? And I'm not just talking about in this room, I'm talking about in your life in general. Because probably most of us have that. You think nothing is wrong when you're surrounded by everybody that looks the same. There is something fundamentally wrong with that, right? And there is something fundamentally wrong. There is something fundamentally wrong when we are thinking to ourselves, let's go represent the USA, this multicultural. We love to brag about how great we are and how we love everyone, but yet the people representing us and representing this country don't look like us at all. That is a problem, right? And not only that, now you have girls thinking that they can never live up to whatever their colleagues do that are not Black, right? They say to themselves, well, those are reserved for white girls. That's reserved, I don't do study abroad. And I say, yes, you do. You belong there. You belong there. So my message to you is to challenge yourself, right? Challenge yourself, challenge the system, challenge our youth. Because we look at it like more programs need to be made for all these girls, but we never look at what we need to do as adults, right? It's not all them. If it's a problem across the board, it's not all them. So I challenge you to be bold and revolutionary in your participation to enact change. We have to do that. You have to do that. These girls are counting on you, and it's not fair to them, right? That they get shortchange of opportunities. I'm doing the work, working with the girls. I urge you to do the work and work against the system. Thank you.